Hey everybody, I'm Andreas.
I'm Rajat.
Hi Rajat. And you probably have heard of it last week. The security community was in shock because of a backdoor they found. So that's what I like to discuss with you today. What do you think?
Let, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's do that. So last week, they by pure accident, I would say, they found out that someone was putting a backdoor in one of a library called the XZ utils, which is basically a compression library that is used by a lot of projects in the Linux ecosystem, and especially it's also used in some installations of the SSHD. So it's basically when run, it's basically making it so that the hacker, or how you would call them, would gain access to any SSHD server that links to this XC util library that they have planted a backdoor in.
hmm
So this is an absolutely nightmare for security reasons, because then your server basically is open for this actor, this bad actor, and they can do whatever they want because they have root access to the server. And let's be real, most of the servers running in the internet are running some sort of Linux, running some sort of SSH
hmm
for maintenance reasons. So
Well,
yeah, so you have heard of it. So what was your first reaction when you first learned about this backdoor?
I mean, I would say that was pretty shocking as well, and how it all came to happen. That was very, I won't say unusual, but very smart in a way that whoever the hacker was, he was pretty damn smart, and he was just in disguise for so long,
Yeah,
to make this hack happen, and he was
yeah,
almost there.
yeah.
If that Microsoft guy somehow didn't notice that, then it would have been, I would say, the greatest heist in the cybersecurity world
At
ever.
least one of
Yeah,
the greatest. Well, let's
one
not
of the
forget
greatest. Yeah.
Microsoft. Since we're talking about Microsoft lost their master key to their Azure cloud.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's not too long
I mean,
ago. So
I'm not giving credit to Microsoft at all. It's that guy, maybe
yeah,
they
you
have
know,
some good
no,
engineers,
I'm just talking about the biggest security
yeah,
problem. Of course, that would be a huge security problem. But let's be real, Microsoft had such a thing, and nobody's talking about it. And
yeah,
so, yeah.
that's
So,
true.
okay, let's just reiterate what happened. So let's go through the timeline quickly. So there is this project called XC Utils, which is maintained by this one guy called Lasse Collins. I guess he's some guy from Europe, or I don't even know where he's coming
hmm
from. And this also reminds me of this XKCD comic. I don't know if you have heard about it. Maybe we can put a link into the description down there,
hmm
where you see the whole internet shiny things, and all companies rely on everything, and then there is a tiny little staple, and this all bases on a little library
hmm
maintained thanklessly from a random person doing it in his free time. So, and that's exactly what happened here, because such a project was infiltrated by one software developer who was calling himself, what is his name? Chia T75. That was his handle on GitHub.
uh-huh.
And so this was back in 2021. So it's almost 3 years, no, it's 3 years ago,
hmm
where he gained the trust of the maintainer by, yeah, providing some commits to the project that were good, bug fixes, new features, like a normal open source contribution
Correct.
developer.
hmm
And soon after that, because the maintainer of this project had some mental health issues, and so he was not very interested in the project anymore, so he couldn't do very much. And then this Jia Tan guy pressured him, "Hey, come on, you have to look for a co-maintainer that helps you with this task." And he said, "Yeah, maybe." And then other people, there were other accounts, also talked about him. Hey, you need some help with the maintaining of the
Mhm.
project, and they even yeah, bad-mouthed him in other projects. Hey, you don't waste your time committing any changes because this maintainer doesn't do anything, and so on and so forth. And with the result that he promoted Jia Tan as his co-maintainer, and that was 2023 around that time.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden he committed some. In the first place, you wouldn't notice that it's a nefarious code or something, because he didn't put anything like that into the code. What he did is he committed some test files, and these test files were then used to be built into the library during build time. So in the GitHub repository itself, there is no trace of a backdoor whatsoever, because it was in a binary file in some test data. And so he
Mhm.
disguised his backdoor by putting it into some test data. So nobody, even if you would look at the source code, you wouldn't find the backdoor. Yeah? And
Mhm.
then what he and his comrades, I would call them, did is then they tried to pressure the distributions like Fedora, SUSE, Ubuntu, Debian to put this new version with the backdoor into their distribution. So,
Mhm.
and for some of the rolling releases like Debian testing and OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, even Arch Linux probably also, they released the XE utils all along with the backdoor. Luckily, the Arch guys looked at the SSHD daemon, and they do not link against the XC utils, so Arch users were safe on this side, because this backdoor, just so you know how it's working, it actually uh, yeah takes a function that checks some cryptographic functionality, and
Uh-huh.
there's a thing called ifunc where you can basically replace a base function with your own function implementation, and that's what they did in this library, in this backdoor. So they
Mm.
derooted, or how you call it when you go in another direction, this function that decrypts or encrypts or decrypts basically
Mhm.
keys. And this is basically the backdoor, because there they check for a special key, and if this key is used, then they let you in. Otherwise, they reject you. So it's a backdoor that only this group can use, not anybody else.
Mm. So private
And
backdoor.
yeah, it's a private backdoor
Oh,
just for
okay.
them. Okay.
Mm.
And they also only get active when some certain premises are fulfilled. Like, for example, it has to be the SSHD executable, and the it should not run in debug mode, and some environment variables have to be set. And they did
Right.
that. Everything they did there is to disguise the backdoor in running configuration, so you don't find them by debugging or something like that. They even tried to convince the OSFuzz project, which is a project by Google that makes fuzzing test for libraries in
Okay.
the
Uh-huh.
open source ecosystem, because in this OSS fuzz test, they found something weird going on with the XC utils. And then Jan Tia came to them and, yeah, that's some bug in the debugger, blah blah blah. So he tried to make them ignore this problem, So a lot of effort has been done
Mhm.
to put this into effect. So the next thing that happened is that this Andres Freund, who is, as you have said, a developer for working for Microsoft. He's working
Correct.
in basically he's working on PostgreSQL as a software developer. He's, by the way, a German guy from Berlin, and he was flying back from Berlin to the States.
Hmm.
And during this flight, he was checking some tests that he has done with his Postgre code that he was developing currently. And he was using Debian testing, the latest version, where the backdoor already has been placed in. Yeah? And he noticed that some SSH logins that he did failed for some unknown reason. So he looked into the test data a little bit closer, and then he noticed while benchmarking that the login function in SSH took 500 milliseconds longer than usual. And that got him suspicious. And so he looked deeper, and then he found, oh my God, there's a backdoor. And he immediately informed the security mailing list, the I don't know, Linux security mailing list, and said, "Hey, look at that! There's a backdoor here. Huh? You have to immediately take action." And
Hmm.
that's what they did, and then the whole thing blew up. And so luckily nothing bad happened, because the stable versions like Ubuntu LTS, the enterprise Linux systems like Red Hat Enterprise Linux and SUSE Enterprise Linux, they never had this library in their. Arch Linux, even although it is a rolling release, was not affected because they don't use the XC utils in SSHD. So yeah, this time we got away.
True. I mean, it's pretty, astonishing how all this happened, and the people behind it took their time, you know, to do all this. Like, I don't know, whoever were his comrades, or supporters, they constantly messaging, or I don't know, reaching out to this maintainer, to have like a co-maintainer there. It's like, it's not just like like you were saying earlier as well, that it's not like a hack of the software. It's hacking the people in a
Yeah,
way,
right, right.
manipulating them to take certain actions, and then eventually creating that backdoor in the software. So so because I think, like, creating the backdoor or doing something malicious within the software is relatively easy, but hacking the humans is a trickier part, I would say, because they're not softwares. They think differently, and they ask questions, and yeah, I mean, that's pretty, I would say, astonishing. Yes. And I think what that Microsoft developer, that German guy, somehow got suspicious of this thing. I think 99% of the people or engineers would have just, ignored it,
Yes,
because it's
absolutely.
500
So
millisecond of difference, you know,
yeah, I
and
would say that's odd, but
yeah, that's
whatever.
what I think. I mean, you would find it odd, but you would not take your, thought in that direction that it could be a backdoor, because
Uh,
I mean, it can come to you as well, but I would say most people would basically ignore it,
yeah, yeah,
you
right.
know.
So he's a perfect example of a typical nerd. Yeah,
Yeah.
he looks at this and thinks, hmm, okay, I have to look into that. That's something I have to investigate on. And by the way, the interesting thing about this Microsoft engineer who found this by accident, uh, even Satya Nadella accomplished him and said, "Hey, yeah, this
Oh, okay.
Andres Freund, well, that's great." He and that's something. I mean,
For
Satya
sure.
Nadella, that shows that he's a nice guy, because he wouldn't have to say anything about this whole incident, but
Yep.
he compliments this engineer for his thing. And imagine you would be in the position of that engineer, and the CEO of Microsoft says, "Hey, great work that you did. Thank you
Hmm.
for that find. That's great. I would say that increases my respect that I have for Satya Nadella even more, because he's a great guy. That's no doubt
Definitely.
about that.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then in the aftermath, they tried to find out. Okay, the question everybody asks them is, who are these guys? Where are they from? Who are they paid by? You know, it's obviously clear that this is not a hobby hacker, script kiddie, or whatever you may call it. That are professional hackers. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so the question was, okay, where are they coming from? Who are they? So, and I'm pretty sure law enforcement is already trying to find them. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
So this Jia Tan guy, by choosing this name, he obviously is pointing direct to China, right?
Right. Yes.
And he also has some. Last week we talked about it, and one of the other guy was some guy called Kumar something something, you know. And you
Oh
said,
yeah,
"Oh yeah,
yeah.
that sounds pretty
Indian
much
name. Yeah.
Indian." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it all points to China and everything. So someone took the time and looked at the commits that he did, and especially the timestamps of those commits, because then you can tell, okay, where is this guy coming from? And most of the commits were in Chinese time zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you would assume, okay, well, then he's obviously from China, right? No, wrong, because he noticed some other odd things about those commits, because some commits were in Eastern European time, only a few, but some. But most commits came from China, from Chinese time
Mm-hmm.
zone, right? Then you can say, yeah. Then you can argue, oh, maybe this guy flew to Europe for some, I don't know, conference or vacation or whatever, and committed something during European time, and then flew back to China and so on. Yeah, that could be true for some of the commits. But there were commits that were done at a certain time in Europe, and then the next commit was done in Chinese time zone. But the time difference, does not work out, because you need 11 hours to get from Europe to China, and
Mm-hmm.
there is not enough time between those two commits. So
Correct. Yeah.
so it looks like that he did forge his time zone. Yeah? So that's very obvious. And also another indicator that he's not from China is that he, uh, analyzing the commits, he looked at the bank holidays. Did he work on the holidays, the Chinese holidays? If he's not working on Chinese holidays, that would indicate, yeah, he's a Chinese person. But he did. There were commits done on Chinese holidays. Yeah. And then he also looked at the European holidays like Christmas, New Year's Eve, and stuff like that, And he looked, are there commits at this holidays? And there were none.
Hmm. So I mean, yeah, I think there is a large possibility, and it's almost certain that that guy could be from Europe and Eastern Europe,
Yeah.
most likely.
Yeah.
Could be Russian as well. Who knows?
Eastern
You know.
Europe, I think. Hey, come on, he's I don't know. It's the same time zone as, I don't know, Romania, Ukraine,
Yeah.
Poland. I don't know. It could be
Yeah. I
anything.
mean.
No, Poland is Middle European time zone, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, doesn't
I think it
matter
could be.
where he
It could
comes
be
from. The
anything.
the question is who he works for.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a intelligence agency, like, I don't know, the Russian intelligence agency, Chinese intelligence? So is it from a country, working for a country,
Mm-hmm.
or is it a private hacker? I mean, those ransomware gangs. I mean, they have lots of money. They can afford
Higher.
developers working
Yeah.
for them
Mm-hmm.
at normal business hours.
True, true. I mean, Russia has like big, I mean, influence, on these hacker world. I mean, a lot of the previous big hackers were Russians as well. So
Yeah.
it could be that it was Russian, and also, I mean, I'm not so sure that the supporters that he had, in this, heist or whatever you want to call it. I mean, either he was the one who was handling all those accounts, or there were like
Yeah.
actually other peoples who were helping him.
Yeah.
It could be any.
Either one could be. So he could have multiple accounts. That would be. But I think that if it is what do you call an actor working for a country? There's a term
What?
for it. How do you call someone acting for a country. So it's not a private actor. It's a okay. I have to.
Somebody working for the country.
Yeah, I'm just
Patriot? I
looking.
don't know.
Let me just translate that quickly. We can cut this out, but governmental. No, it's not the word I'm looking for.
The government officer? I don't know.
Government funded, state approved, officially recognized, state owned, state run, governmental, national, whatever. Maybe national?
Okay.
A national hacker? No. Public? No.
Ethical
State
hacker? I
hacker?
don't. No, not
Huh?
ethical hacker. State hacker. State hacker. Yeah.
State hacker? Something like that. Anyways,
That's a better name. Yeah.
yeah. So, what do you think? Are you scared?
I mean, I'm not. I mean, but it's an interesting story. I mean, that tells you that even the smallest thing can lead to something bigger. I mean, if that guy hadn't noticed it, then it could be a bit bigger story,
No.
than it already is.
And of
So yeah.
course, people come up and say, yeah, you see, that's the problem with open source. Everybody can contribute. That's true.
Mm,
That can happen. That's absolutely true. But this case is a very bad example for that because
yeah.
that can happen to any privately owned company as well, closed source or not.
Mhm.
Because I don't know. So let's take the big companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple. How likely is it that there is no hacker working for them in disguise, a so-called sleeper that was
Sleeper
installed
hacker. Yeah.
5 years ago and then works his way up to the in the engineering and then puts in backdoors without anyone noticing? How unlikely
True.
would that be?
True. I mean,
And
high chances. I think that happens
harder
all
to
the time.
find.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and harder to find. In
Yeah.
this instance, it was found because it was open source.
Correct.
Were it closed source, I don't know. Maybe it would be a little bit tougher to find.
True. True. I mean, I think in the past, whenever we've heard of these stories, companies getting hacked or these softwares getting hacked, I think it's mostly somebody internal who created the backdoor, or who somehow did that, because it's really really difficult to do it from external,
Yeah,
from outside. It's really difficult to do that, so you need somebody inside, and it's really a large possibility that somebody they've planted many years ago, now they've worked their way to the top, and now they're basically creating those backdoors now. So I think it's very much true. Doesn't matter open source or closed source. I mean,
yeah,
somebody with good planning, somebody with good social engineering, and hacking the human skill, hacking the software skills will pull it out. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So,
So yeah.
and the other question now is, okay, this time we caught it, but how often were they successful?
Many times, I think, yeah, we've heard a lot of successful hacking stories as well, big ones, and companies had to just basically somehow bow down to them and do whatever they ask for. You know,
Hmm.
I remember one instance. Do you know this movie called The Interview?
Yeah, with Seth Rogen, where they fly to North
James
Korea.
Franco, yeah, the North Korea, yeah, that one,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So I think it's a true story, because I've heard it that after that movie was released, and obviously they made a lot of fun of Kim Jong Un from North Korea, right? And after that movie released, obviously he got pissed, and North Korean hackers basically took down Sony. Literally they hacked Sony soon after that, and Sony lost a lot of money, in the ransomware and all that stuff. So that happened. I mean,
Yeah.
true story, I think.
By the way, because you're mentioning North Korea right now, I just read the headline, but it was funny enough. There was obviously an incident a short time ago where
Okay.
some engineer was pissed at the North Korean government or something like that, flew the country and then took down their complete internet for some.
Oh,
Yeah, so a single person took down the complete internet of North Korea. That happened just a few days ago. I have to look
Mhm.
into that again. Anyways, yeah. So yeah. So you always have to be cautious, and then you have to be always considering, hey, there might be bad intent when someone tries to push some source code into your repository or something like that. Yeah, and we have to find a way to identify those backdoors before they get installed. There are currently things on the way where they yeah have some yeah code that detects those backdoors.
True.
Okay, so well, that's it for this security nightmare.
Yep.
Hope nothing happens. So check your distributions, see if the versions of the XC utils is correct, and update your systems.
True. And yeah, don't get hacked.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next video. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.